But that's the irony, I think, which is if I don't want to get a lot out of this, balance is quite easy because I never put myself in a position where I have to choose. The people who have this issue the most are people who want to do big, exciting, challenging, difficult jobs. That means you got to make some choices. Therefore, you need to know what the choices are.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Rich from Thinking Focus.
And the question is, how can I be successful and have balance in my life? This question is part of a mini-series on The Question Is, which explores questions that often come up when we're coaching people. When faced with this question, we're going to talk about how we might respond. So, Richard, when you get asked, do I choose between balance and success, what would you say?
Well, one of the first things I probably do here is try and understand what do they mean by balance.
Ooh, interesting. Explain that a little bit to me.
Well, I suppose I'm trying to just get a grip of what does that mean? I wish you would
get a grip, yeah.
Get a grip, yeah. So do I. What do they mean? Because you could assume that they're saying this is a form of work-life balance. You could assume it might be a health work balance. It could be any number of things. So it could be, am I spending enough time with different parts of people, different parts of the team, people in different teams that I lead? So I just try and what do you mean? What is it that you're getting at? Give me some context is probably the first thing that I would ask. And then it flows out of there really, and people are pretty quick then to say, any number of things. It could be I'm spending a lot of time away from home and I'm being very successful and I'm achieving a lot and I've got promoted and I've been given another region to look after, but I'm aware that that's causing some conflict with my social life. It could be if they're married with a partner. It could be if they've got kids with the kids. It could be any of that, or it might be a variation on that kind of thing. But I try and understand what it is that they're talking about, first of all, without assuming it.
Yeah, for me, it's a fascinating topic, particularly when they talk about work-life balance, because I find it's one of these topics now where people, and I've just recently had someone come to me and sort of start talking about work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, I get all the theory and I get you've been reading stuff in the paper or in magazines or hearing people talk about it. What do you want? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, what do you want? Because balance is a very individual concept. For me to be in balance might be a very different way of working and different set of expectations for you to be in balance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, just take very basic differences between me and you. You have kids, I don't. Young children make a massive difference to your decisions and what balance would look like to you, and I don't have that, so I'm looking for other things.
Yeah, and that's why I try and seek a bit of clarity, because I have had it when someone said, "Well, no, it's not family work balance. The balance is more about, am I spending enough time sort of working on the business and working in the business?"
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Oh, okay, different thing altogether. So that is it. I mean, it usually is about balancing work, rest, and play. It usually is about balancing that, but it's not always that. So I try and seek a bit of that, and then I think you of course you've got to ask why are you thinking about these things, and sometimes it's that people are feeling some friction in that they feel they're spending more time on one thing than they'd like to, and they're noticing that. I don't know. Do you get that when you're coaching people?
I get that. Again, the question is, is it that you're spending more time on this thing than you'd like to? Is it that you're consciously, therefore, spending less time on something and you're feeling guilty? Because the sort of different things play into this. People all the time, you must have had but I'm not spending enough time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, well, okay, but do your kids want you to spend more time with them?
Yeah. I mean, I felt that myself, over the years. Have I done enough? I had an old boss of mine years ago. If he's listening to this, Colin, great bloke that I worked for. And I was starting to struggle with, I just got a young family and was starting to struggle with the balance of work versus being away and being at home and kids being young. And his piece of advice, and I've used it loads this with other people, was...
But not yourself, clearly.
Yeah, and I have to use it with myself still now. But he said to me, wherever you are, be there.
Ooh.
And that then chimes in with a value I have as well, which I have a value about high performance. And it is, if you want high performance, try and engage in the thing you're doing fully.
Yes.
Right. So when you put those two things together, when Colin said to me, wherever you are, be there, he was kind of alluding to the fact that I was away from home and feeling guilty about not being home. So I wasn't really present at work, and I clearly wasn't present at home. So I wasn't there. So I was doing two things very poorly. And that really helped, because it made me realize, right, okay, for these 3 days, I'm away, I'm focusing on this piece of work we're doing, whatever it was at the time. I need to fully focus on that. That doesn't mean I'm not going to call home. It doesn't mean I'm not going to think about home. It doesn't mean all those things, but I need to focus on that. But it really made me realize that when I am at home with the kids, if I am at home with the family, I need to focus on that and not then be distracted by emails and texts and all the rest of it in the evening. And of course there's a temptation to be, and I'm not saying that I never did, and that I still don't. You do, and that's okay. But it's that realization that if I want to get some balance, I've got to engage in whatever I'm doing fully. So that was a really good piece of advice I've had. And I will often talk that through with people when I'm coaching.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, I sort of build on that slightly, because I really like that. I think it's a really, really sage piece of advice, because a lot of the time when people go, I don't have balance, it's because you're not actually in anything. You're trying to do them all. But the other one, I say to people, you've got to have, particularly if you've got a big demanding job, you've got to have red lines, and you have to know what they are. So if it's really important that you go to your kids' football at the weekends, or you drop them off at guides, or whatever it is, if that's really important to you, it's a red line. And you have to go, for this period of time of an evening, or, I'm going to leave early on this night every week. Put it in your diary, block it in, say, this is what I'm going to do. Just because you've done that doesn't mean you're not committed to the job. It doesn't mean you're not working hard. The classic example I have, I've seen a number of people who've gone, I feel like I have to go home and work, and it's getting in the way of my kids. And you go, well, go home and not work. And if on the few times you need to work, go, I'll do an hour when the kids are in bed.
Yeah.
But put a red line in that says, for that, 2 hours when we have dinner and I put the kids to bed, that's their time. And that's not to say I'll never do it. Clearly, if there's a massive crisis, I'll change my mind, but I'm not going to do it just to catch up on my emails.
There's someone we're working with at the moment, a leader that we work with, and I heard him saying to his team, it was a conversation I overheard, so it wasn't one that I was in.
So you were spying on people again.
Yeah.
Talk to you about that.
But he said, look, there will always be another email.
Yes.
There will always be another meeting.
Yes.
You can't get to the bottom of all of them. And I thought it was a really good thing to say, because there will always be another email. There will always be another meeting. But if it's important for you to go to the gym, to run, to exercise, to try and get some balance back in terms of, physical, mental health and those things, then you're right. That's a red line. You accept that the emails might have to wait for a little bit. And I think that whole area of, mind, body, spirit, work, rest, play, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We could all do with reminding ourselves of that, because if you're not nourishing the spirit, if you're not nourishing the mind, if you're not nourishing the body, then actually your performance is going to be less than optimal. Yeah. And we forget that, don't we?
Yeah. And I have that conversation a lot. I have that conversation a lot with people that says, for all of us, we'll have an activity that I like to call your recovery activities. It might be one thing, it might be a few things, but there are a few things we do that allow us to kind of recover from the daily battering that life presents itself sometimes. It's an energy thing, really. There's some activities we have to do that we may love doing, but they drain us, and there's some things that kind of recharge us. And I was coaching somebody recently, and the first question I went is, you've been out on your bike.
Mm.
In fact, I've coached a few people recently who've been out on your bike.
Mm.
And they sort of look at me and you go, well, look, that's your recovery activity. That's where you're getting a bit of time for you, a bit of mindfulness, a bit of, chemical pumping around your body. That's a really powerful part. And it's no less important than the most important meeting you've had that week. Because that keeps that, one leads to the other. Like you say, your performance will drop if you don't do these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's another aspect to this conversation, though, which is, someone that's ambitious, that wants to get on and wants to be successful, and will define that by work their way up the career ladder, right? And that's clearly not the only definition of success, but let's use it for this.
Okay.
There's another side of the conversation here, which is, if you're going to do that, that is going to take some long hours.
Yes.
That is going to take a lot of effort. That is going to have an impact on other areas of your life.
But that's the irony, I think, which is, if I don't want to get a lot out of this, balance is quite easy, because I never put myself in a position where I have to choose.
Yeah.
Therefore, I don't actually have to think about what do I want. And that's why I think, in the coaching we do, the people who have this issue the most are people who want to do big, exciting, challenging, difficult jobs. That's different at different levels. That, not everybody wants to be CEO. But they've pushed themselves beyond their comfort zone. And that means you've got to make some choices. Therefore, you need to know what the choices are.
Yeah.
If your only choice is, if everything's going wrong or it gets really hard, I'll just work longer and I'll just work harder and I'll stop talking to my family and I won't go out with my friends and I won't go to the gym anymore. Eventually, you burn out.
Yeah, this is dangerous. You have to acknowledge, as you just said, if you want those things, you're going to have to make some choices. I think if, I was coaching someone only last week and had this conversation with that person about, well, okay, does this just mean that you're going to work longer and harder? And, they kind of squirmed a bit, because I think they realised that what they were being asked probably is going to mean that, yes. And then you ask, is that what you want? And the answer really was, no, I'm already working a tremendous amount and I want some balance. I want some time with my family. I want some time doing other things.
Yeah. And it's important you know that.
And this person worked that out. And then you say, right, okay, so how do we achieve the goal without, killing yourself?
Yeah.
And that requires a lot more thought then. You then start saying, well, who else do I need to rely on? How can I negotiate, delegate a number?
And I wonder, I'm just curious, hearing you talk about that, I wonder if there's sort of a rite of passage beneath this that says we all get to a point where we're offered the sexy job, the big job, because at some point we've done something pretty spectacular in the previous job, probably by throwing personal agency at it.
Mm.
We've just gone, I will chuck more of my energy, more of my time, more of me at this to be successful, and that gets us promoted. Till eventually we get to a role where that response cannot work. It doesn't matter how much energy I throw, how many hours I throw at this, it doesn't matter how much of me I give, it will still never be enough. I have to learn to do it in a different way.
And you're starting to, you're making me think there about, if you get into a senior job, yeah, you might take a belief that it's me that has to make all the decisions. It's me that needs to know everything. It's me that needs to be across everything. I need to be the one that, says yes, says no. I need to be the figurehead. I need to be all these things. And you have to challenge, is that true?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I often like doing when I get people in this position is I go, what do you think your role is in all of this? And they'll go, my role is to hit this number or to take this business to the next level. And I go, why don't we reframe that and to go, your role is to get this group of people to hit the number, or your role is to get this group of people to take it to the next level. It's a subtly different job now, because it's about leadership, not about agency. It's not about what you can do. It's what you can get this group of people to do. And that's subtly different.
Do you think the endless pursuit of perfect, and we'll call it work-life balance for the purposes of this, accepting that there could be other forms of balance, do you think that the endless pursuit of perfect work-life balance is a bit phony then, because it's more about making choices at different times?
Well, the thing I struggle with, and I was working with a company recently where we've had this debate with a group of senior leaders, to go, define me what's work-life balance. Because I defy anybody to come up with something that works for everybody. What's balance for you is not balance for me.
Yeah.
There's an idea, and I always get this slightly wrong. I've read some research of this idea about, when we approach work, some of us are segregators and some of us are integrators. So some of us like to separate out work from the rest of our life, which means we're probably more likely to want to work a number of hours, stay a bit late, finish, go home, not take any work home with us. Some of us are integrators. Now, I'm an integrator. We're working at the moment, but I'm not going to today, so I don't need to. But I would quite happily then finish this, go, I've got nothing to do for an hour. I'm going to go and get my hair cut. In fact, I think I can't remember the last time I actually got my hair cut not while I was at work. But then I will think of something at 10 o'clock tonight and go, I'm going to do that now because I feel quite engaged in it.
Yeah.
So I work when I want to work to a certain extent, and that suits me. I shouldn't put that on you, right? And I think there are some challenges about bosses who like to work late at night, emailing people, making all the segregators go, I should be here answering emails, where you shouldn't be. And so I think there's some challenges to that. But to say my balance is your balance just seems a bit weird to me.
So I think it for me, it is possible to achieve the success that you want, whatever that is, however you're defining it, and achieve the balance that you want.
I would go one step further, actually, Rich. I think the question is slightly flawed. I think if you want to do something big and juicy that's going to be highly demanding on you, you're never going to do it unless you learn how to do it with balance in your life, because you'll just wear yourself out.
Yeah, to me, it is possible, but you have to be aware that there's times when the scales might not be perfect.
Yes.
But what you're by asking this question, what someone is saying is, how can I try and get the scales around the midpoint most of the time, knowing that they might go up and they might go down.
Yeah, and that starts with knowing what's on both sides, and that's what I think is really interesting when I'm coaching people. When you talk about balance, is they don't really want balance. They want to go, how do I feel great about working stupid hours? And the answer is, don't work stupid hours. Do other things. Time with friends, exercise, rest, sleep, investing in your family are very important things. And they're important generally for human beings. But if you don't even want to see it like that, they are the things that enable you to do the crazy work in the first place. So if your only commitment is the crazy work, it's I always think of it back to the brilliant Stephen Covey's sharpening the saw.
Sharpening the saw, yeah.
If you're not invested in you're running at half speed. It doesn't sound like you're that committed to the work anyway. So why not invest in you?
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.